Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Hi, Sheila.
Hello, my name is Andy Engel. I lead public programs for Reimagine, which is a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community. We've got people of different backgrounds, different ages, different races, people of faith, people of no faith. We all come together at events like this one to find solace in a world that feels deeply alienating, disorienting, and hopeless. We support each other to face adversity, loss, and mortality. And we also support folks who want to transform life's biggest challenges into purpose, action, and growth. DOROT, which is a co-host of this program, has been a collaborator of Reimagine's since 2018. The year Reimagine first put on our first and only in-person festival in New York City. Now most of what we do is online. So thank you, Amy Stein-Milford and Claire Solomon Nisen of DOROT for making this event possible. You both took the baton, ran with it. You worked quickly to put this together. I'm really grateful to you. And thank you, Wally Klatch, for becoming one of Reimagine's newest collaborators, who is using our virtual platform to host his own presentations about aging, life cycle events, and transitions. When I met Wally, I was moved by his decision to come out of the closet. And by that, I mean someone brave enough to speak openly about living with early stage dementia. And he's not just talking about it, he's taking action. Living fully with the capacities he has right now. Wally is a theorist, a philosopher, a wordsmith, a prophet, and according to Jewish mystical tradition, he might be one of the 36 righteous people holding up the world right now. You just never know. I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Claire Nisen. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Wally. Thanks, Amy. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. We are really grateful at DOROT to be here with Reimagine. If those of you are new to our work at DOROT, oh, hello. I'm Spot-Litten. We provide all kinds of opportunities for social connection for older adults. DOROT, if you're wondering, what is that, is the Hebrew word for generations. And our work is grounded in intergenerational connection and in building community. And a lot of that actually is what we're doing now. And again, wherever you might be and whoever you might be or aspire to be, we're really grateful that you're here, the same as Andy. So I'm grateful to the Reimagine community as well. So Wally and I don't really know each other, but actually we kind of really know each other. Because I think there are ways that you can do that. You can meet someone once or twice, and all of a sudden you feel like, actually, maybe you've met them before. Or maybe they've taught you in some way so much about who you are that they're just a part of who you are now. And perhaps that's how I feel about Wally. So this is how it's going to go, just so you're not surprised. Wally and I are going to talk together. We're going to have a conversation. It's not an interview. We're going to chat. And then we're going to give some examples of what comes out of our conversation, and then we're going to turn it to you and have a conversation. And again, we're just grateful to be in this space. So Wally first, hi.
Hello Claire, and
hey.
Hello to our whole group.
Hey everybody. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is epitaphing. I know that was in the description, and it even said, at least the DOROT blurb was you might not even know what that is. So we're going to talk about creating an epitaph and the act of epitaphing. And Wally, I wonder if you can start us off and explain what is epitaphing and how is it part of a grieving process?
Thanks, Claire.
Of course.
And really, you just used the key word. You said, what is the act of epitaphing? And that's exactly what it is. An epitaph is a short summary of a person. A few words that can usually go on a tombstone, something like that. It can even be engraved, a brief description engraved on a tombstone. An epitaph is something that's set. It's a definition. It doesn't change. As part of a grieving process, I feel things change, and epitaphing can capture a changing situation and changing feelings over time. And so not only can they be different, an epitaph can be different for each person in how they relate to a deceased person or how they relate to having lost a job or whatever they're grieving. And so epitaphing is, I don't want to get literary, it's a verb. It takes an epitaph, a set of words, a deceased person, and then it's acted on.
And then an action.
An action, exactly right. So, and there's no rules of the game when it comes to it. If a person has prepared an epitaph, fine, and if not, then I'll prepare the epitaph as I feel it is for the deceased person, and then I'll do the epitaphing. I'll decide out of somebody's epitaph what they've defined, which piece of it I want to keep alive. I'm going to act in a way that keeps that person's epitaph alive in the world. So it brings it's not just me remembering and being sad or something like that, not just somebody remembering and being sad or something. It's for people who are at that stage of grieving that are able to do it and even want to do it. They can take actions related to the person, and we'll give some examples of that.
Yeah, it enables you to honor someone in the way that feels best for you, right? Like how you honor someone who we both might know might look different for both of us.
Beautiful.
It's so moving. How did this come to you? How I mean, I had never heard of epitaphing until we talked a couple weeks ago. Tell me about how it came to.
Let me really briefly go through it so the group here feels how it happened.
They can feel it.
There you go. I've been through a process. I was diagnosed with dementia, early stage dementia, at a certain point about 3 years ago. So that already started a process. Dementia it's still unimaginable. I can't say a sentence with my name and with the word dementia together. It's still completely unimaginable. But that created things. So my grief right after that happened, I got the diagnosis, everything was black. I had 2 words in my vocabulary, death and dementia. And then at one point I realized, well, yeah, I'm dying, I have dementia, but I'm still living. So that already opened things up. Okay, it's not literally, it's not black and white. So I now realize I'm living and dying. And then I realized that opened up a door where I just flowed along. I didn't think of any of this stuff myself. Then it became living and dying. It's not just that I'm living and dying at the same time. Living and dying are actually dancing a duet, and I'm part of it. So that also was a place in this flow that I'm flowing along with. And then along came a tombstone. I felt I need to, as part of dying, I need to create a tombstone for myself. And then as soon as I'm starting to get the message. As soon as something happens, the next thing shows up. Mm-hmm. As soon as I finished my tombstone, I said, wait a second, this is my epitaph. So I didn't even use the word epitaph. This is my tombstone. Well, I spent several weeks, what we're calling now my epitaph, coming up with it. And I said, wait a second, if I've just spent several weeks coming up with my epitaph, this is how I should live my life. So instead of just my tombstone, it became my
Your
lifestone.
lifestone.
And then, gosh, all I have to do is go for a long walk and clear out my guts and my mind, and the next thing will show up, and there it was, epitaphing. This an epitaph. It's not that definition is not the end. There is more beyond it. I happen to believe there's more beyond it for the deceased person, which I'll be, and pardon me for saying so, we'll all be deceased persons at some time. And also for the people who survive and want to. So epitaphing is something that came out of a flow, and I woke up one day and said, well, epitaphing sounds like a nice word. It literally came out of the need to take the tombstone I had created and said, no, this is what I put on my tombstone. It should be living. I should live it, and other people should live it.
And you can walk with it. It's so I love the duet. This idea of a duet is so moving. It makes me wonder what music do we hear, right? That's a rhetorical question, I think, but it makes me think about music, right? And the what is also attached to the act of epitaphing. What do we hear? What do we see? All of our in all of our senses. I think that's such a beautiful phrase.
Thanks, Claire, for saying that, because you are demonstrating it happen, and so that's great. If the participants here feel it, that's what we're here to accomplish more than anything else. This feeling of flow, taking something that's fixed and making it a flow, it makes everything look and feel much, much different. So thanks for saying that.
So Andy wrote in the chat, if folks want to share their song, whatever that might mean to them, of course you can feel free to do so. If in that tiny moment when I was thinking that, I think I could have been a little bit braver and said, actually, maybe I'm thinking about music, right? That makes me think about music. It's so powerful, and it's so active in terms of how we're engaging at whatever stage we are of grief or in our lives with the world. And I'm so grateful that you've brought that concept to us. When do we start epitaphing?
Well, I'll tell you, because of my dementia, I don't jump topics too easily. So I tell you what, I'm gonna go all in on this conversation. Great. For me, the music changes when I'm on my walks. I always find out what mood I'm in by what music I'm feeling that living and dying are dancing to at their duet right now. But I will say there's one song that, when I don't have something else, it is what music do I play when living and dying or dancing a duet? And it's not even the whole song. It's actually the last verse. So it's very short. So I'm going to say what my song is.
Tell me your song.
Born free and life is worth living, but only worth living 'cause you're born free. That's it. That's when I want to say, what dance are we dancing today? What song am I singing for living and dying? That's what flows out. Sorry, I don't mean to get but that's
okay. There's one rule of our conversation, and it's that you can't apologize.
Okay. So
is that a song that you heard or knew before?
Yeah, it's Born Free.
The song is Born Free.
An old song. But yeah, that's the last verse that just says it, because it says it to me. Life is worth living. When living and dying are dancing their duet, yeah, I want to sing a song at living, but not at any cost and not always appropriate. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I didn't mean to say so.
It's okay.
Does anybody else have a...
Yeah, who has a song?
Okay, we flow.
Think about it. And perhaps it will also make you think differently about music or songs or time the next time you're playing or singing or listening. It's another beautiful thing, I think, Wally, about epitaphing is that it's gotten us to this place we maybe didn't anticipate, and we're doing something actively that's honoring this experience. Hazel wrote, "Precious Lord, take my hand," right? That's that song. That's a beautiful song. Thank you, Hazel. Music is something that moves me, so I'm grateful it got us to this place. Should we keep talking, Wally, about how someone does epitaphing? We're going to share some examples of what Wally and I wrote epitaphs, and are going to talk about epitaphing for you. But I wonder if we want to paint a picture, to move it into a different medium of art here, to take a picture about how one does.
The question you started to ask before, if you don't mind, I take a few moments about when and why does a person do epitaphing.
Sure. Great.
And I really want to, first of all, emphasize epitaphing is one piece of grieving. It doesn't come to replace anything. There are things about grieving that can't be replaced because we have no control. The feeling, all the guts part, the mind part, it can't be replaced. Epitaphing comes to be an additional tool in the grieving process that is what we're offering here today. So it may be part of the way a person grieves for a deceased person, and in that way is to keep them alive in a certain way, to be active about it. Or it can be, I'm not intentionally keeping a part of the person alive, but this is my way. This is a way that means something to me to express love or respect or whatever feeling I have for the deceased. And an action may be different than oral or written expression, doing something, and again, we'll see a few examples of it. That's when epitaphing may be appropriate. And we mentioned earlier that epitaphing can also, I can give guidance for how I want people to do epitaphing for me. And it's as we're saying, it's a living activity. It's not something that sits still, and so that gives a completely different feeling to the idea of remembrance and grieving and respect. So those are some.
I love how, first of all, someone shared another song in the chat, Under Pressure. I love how when you started talking and saying you got this diagnosis, right? Period. There was, but it's not a period. It was like, then there was a ... right? And I think that's also what epitaphing is. It's the ... and the dots just keep ... dotting. And I think often when we receive news that feels like it's changed our lives, it's what you've suggested and what you're bringing to us is that we think about how to incorporate it into just a new version of ourselves, and how to share that self with the world, as it were. And that's active, right? That's an active process.
Yes.
That's pretty
beautiful. I have certain sensitivities, Claire, and you just stepped on one of them.
I stepped on you.
You said we can think of something a certain way. I have dementia. My thinking is going down. My feeling is going way up. So we can think and feel.
We can think and feel.
And I'm very sensitive, which is why I'm mentioning that. But I found that feeling things rather than thinking about them has made that different balance. Doing both, but in a different balance. And I'll just give it a plug. There's the word mindfulness. Everybody uses, and so one of the things, where's feelingfulness? So I created, if you look at feelingfulness.com, there's feelingfulness right next to mindfulness. So so that flows into epitaphing, exactly what you're saying, Claire. It's a different way of approaching
Feelingfulness. I have to feel about feelingfulness.
I'm not familiar with the song that somebody mentioned. Could
Under
you
Pressure?
Or the person,
Under pressure. Goes like that. Na, 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 na. No. Yeah. Here's what we can Andy and Amy, perhaps we can put these songs, but not for now because we're engaged in this presence together. But perhaps we can have an opportunity to share this music with folks in some way, in the chat at the end or something like that, so that you can be left with something that continues to move. Feelingfulness. So, Wally, can we talk now about the logistics of creating the epitaph before we share some examples?
Okay, what are the steps?
What are the steps?
The logistics of it. Everybody here has already done the first step. The fact that you may have heard the word epitaphing, and even without having a clue as to what it is, to say, I'm open enough to spend this amount of time to hear about it. That's already by far the first and most important step of the whole thing. So we're already on this journey, and we're each on different journeys, but we've crossed paths in some ways right now. So that's the first step in the whole process, is to be aware of it and think about where it might be appropriate, or who or what situations it might be appropriate. And then the second step is to go through the process. What would an epitaph be, either for myself or something that's going on with me, or for another person? What might it be? And realizing that could be, for example, a tombstone, and then realizing this could really be my lifestone. And then it's starting to put in place what epitaphing I might be doing, so that it becomes clearer. Okay, this is part of my grieving process, because one of the purposes of epitaphing is to be part of the grief and the way I express grief. And I would say a final thing, just like doing things is sometimes important, not just feeling them or thinking about them, but doing them. Sometimes ceremonies can be really valuable. So it may be part of the doing is there are ceremonies, remembrance ceremonies, whatever, or ceremonies with myself. And the examples we'll give may include ceremonies. So those are some of the steps to go through. And I'm saying those that can be gone through, those reflect what I went through. Every single person here would do epitaphing in a different way, and that's just the way it should be, just what you said before, Claire.
And yet it exists as a tool for us. In the chat, Amy asked, it sounds like epitaphing is something you can do for a person, yourself or a loved one, but also for other things, a time in your life, an experience, or a place. What do you think about that?
Wow. Can you imagine? Here, thank you for bringing, wait a second. What I feel you're saying is there can be an event in life or a time, if I go through this process with it, I might feel different about it. I may realize it's not just something, an epitaph set in stone because it happened back then. I'm bringing it back to life by doing a version of epitaph. Wow, that's quite beautiful.
Or you're changing its life. Both. That's so useful. In feeling and in thinking, both. Is anyone else thinking of a song still? Or thinking about something you want to share in this moment with us? We're going to go into sharing some examples. I'm still stuck on the duet in how I'm feeling. Okay. Hazel said, epitaphing strikes me as a tagline for identifying or naming your authentic self. I've seen Wally make that face before, so I think that moved him. I'm struck with I'm just going to tell you because you're someone who just likes to tell about what you tell, you know? Your authentic self, I think, is such an interesting phrase, and it's also making me think about selves, plural. Like so many times we're kind of more than one person. And what you're describing also invites me to think about different versions of ourself at different times. And for me, epitaphing invites you to go there. So Hazel, thank you. Natalie wants to hear some examples, and I think we can give the people what they want. What do you think?
For sure, but again, I don't jump very well.
But let's stay there. Let's stay there until we're ready to jump.
What you just said. You know what epitaphing does? I got to it through a several week spent during my twice-a-day walks. And so when you said finding your authentic self, that was part of the process. That's coming up with, that's back at the tombstone stage. I hate to say back, it's not back at all. But that's what it was. The word you just used, authentic.
Authentic self. That was,
and that's, I use the word noise because I like to be able to hear something that's noise. I'm not going to. I don't have the brain capacity or the physical capacity to deal with noise, and that was part of the. So, but look at what you've just brought in. The person who raised that point. Yeah, part of getting to epitaphing is getting rid of the noise and becoming more what my authentic self is. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me when you feel ready to give some examples so that people can hear what an epitaph is and then see how it's hear and see and feel how it's actualized.
Fair enough. So I'm going to give two examples. One is about grieving for somebody else, and the second one is really about grieving for myself, which ties into what we just said a few words about authenticity. And the first one is for my brother who died and was buried in our hometown, and he there wasn't much time before he died when it became obvious, so he didn't leave an epitaph, and he was a quiet, pleasant person. And what he spent his time on, what he worked in was plants. He was a gardener, and he would grow plants and landscaping and house plants and arranging. And that's what he did, and that's how many people knew him. So it was very close. So he died, unfortunately, at a certain point, and after the formal mourning period, I didn't even think of it as epitaphing, but it came natural. He's a plants guy, so what am I going to do to keep him alive, so to speak, to remember him? Not just remembering him, but what I started to realize that when I go on walks, there were plants that I would pay attention to that, for whatever reason, would jump out, and I started to realize I was attracted to, so I went over and started stroking them, just for a few moments, touching them, not even stroking, touching those plants in some way, because I really, to be honest, I loved those plants. I felt for those plants. I wanted to touch them, to be in contact with them. So I came to the point, I realized there was a connection there. So that was my way of epitaphing my brother, Jim. And it felt right. It's not a grandiose thing or something like that. But it felt right. And it's keeping him alive, because I really am paying attention, partly because of my feeling for him. And I'm glad to be doing it. And it also keeps him alive. So that's my way of epitaphing my brother. And it keeps going. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I'm showing him my love and respect for him and keeping a piece of him alive. And that's part of what grieving is about, without being stuck, in the past, but being part of it. So that's one example. I don't know if anybody has feelings or some activity they do that may be connected with that in some way, or spend a moment on that.
Oh, Andy just wrote about grief gardening.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
I didn't either. Thanabotany. So we should look into grief botany.
Well, Andy, can you say a word about that?
One of our collaborators, Cole and Perry, who is a thanatologist, someone who studies death. She has been doing a lot of work gardening and finding that it can be a very useful tool for a lot of people who are grieving. And it brings together the world of botany with thanatology.
Wally, I'm gonna go somewhere because it's in my brain, and my what someone once told me is my heart center and your soul tummy. Grieving, right? We grieve long after we lose people, like the act of long, right? After we have a tombstone, it just struck me when you were speaking that this epitaphing and grieving, like continued movement, live in parallel, right? So that is what I am thinking.
Beautiful. They live in parallel, and they're dancing. They are dancing, because our grieving changes, and so our epitaphing can change along with it, for sure. Let me just quickly go to the other one also, grieving for myself, because it really ties into some of the earlier part of the conversation, and that is all about how I view myself. And I went through it a little bit, and it took several weeks, and really I had to feel a lot of things and really remember a lot of things of the past, how I felt about them, how I feel about things. And I briefly mentioned before the process I went through, and it came up to a 20-word epitaph, which I defined for myself. I knew that was the goal, to come up, even though I'm going to be cremated and I'm not actually going to have a tombstone, I felt about this whole thing, it's like a tombstone. So that's why I decided I want 20 or 25 words to be the result of my process. So here are the 20 words actually that I came up with about, and now we can refer to it as an epitaph, but I hadn't thought about it. I thought of it in terms of my tombstone. So my 20 words that I came up with after this whole process are: to feel situations I'm in and to bring my energies to make the situations richer for the people they touch. As I thought about it, that's what I came up. And gosh, that was so easy to then say, that's how I see myself. Well, those are words I can live by. I can pay attention. Am I living according to what I've defined for myself as the essence of my most authentic self? So it really ties into the comment that was before, and it shows this flow. I thought I was creating my tombstone, and as we said before, okay, so that became my lifestone.
Your lifestone.
And then I was talking. Epitaphing didn't even exist. If somebody said they'd never heard of epitaphing, it only came into the world, as far as I'm concerned, a few months ago. And so I was talking about it, and they said, well, if you're going to be cremated, what about how are people going to put a stone on your tombstone? In the Jewish religion, one of the ways, if you go visit somebody's grave and you want to remember them, you put a stone on them. So the response was, okay, great. I'm delighted that you asked that question, because the answer is the the stones you please put on my grave is my legacy. That what is really important for me is to see a situation and just do a littlest thing, not grandiose, absolutely not. I do it all the time. You know what really is amazing to me are bricklayers. Or, they're doing some construction. To see a bricklayer, he doesn't just plop the cement and then plop the brick. There's a string there, and he's doing it. And I walk up, I look and watch, and I feel. So I walk up to him, I say, you're really an artist. You're really doing artwork here. That's what I mean by creating a small amount of positive energy in the world. And gosh, once you start doing it, you can't go 10 minutes without feeling something. Okay, just do the smallest thing. And so I say that, and I say, if you want to put a stone on my gravestone, please take that piece of it and do it in whatever way is appropriate for you. That's how I want somebody to grieve for me, by taking that piece of who I am, and please, in your own way and as often as you want, for as long as you want, please do.
And that's the stone.
And that's the stone. That's the stone.
I heard a phrase yesterday about being an agent for good, or an agent of good. Like an active way to think about how one brings goodness, whatever that might mean to you, into the world. And it makes me think about that. But the words, or the act of doing is the stone, is how one would remember you. Yeah.
And that's also, if I hear you correctly, that's flexible. There isn't one specific act that is expected. Don't give. It's not saying give charity. Give $10 away. Nothing like that. So.
No, it could even be like, how'd you make someone's day better? And maybe that means like opening a door, or maybe that means telling a bricklayer who's just doing their job that you think that they're an artist. Likely that changed how they thought about their day, and how they thought somebody else thought about their day too. That's beautiful. Hazel asked if you journal. I know. I see you. I feel you. Hazel asked if you journal at the beginning. So perhaps how you sort of set yourself to thinking in this way.
I'll tell you, since my diagnosis, and maybe before, my life is completely surrealistic. I don't even imagine my life. I just flow with it. Before I got my diagnosis, I was really intrigued by energies and resonating, and Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein. It was just, I don't know why, so I created a website. It's resonatingworld.com, and it was full about energies and resonating. And then I got my diagnosis, and I started to feel, I'm having a lot of thoughts and this and that, feelings. I should just write them down somewhere. So if you go to, so the other site I created was the alzheimersconversation.com. That's where I journaled this, but I plopped it right on top of it's a resonating world.com. I didn't even take, because I didn't imagine my journaling was going to go somewhere. And I know how to use the program to create a website. So you can go to the alzheimersconversation.com and start looking through. There's a lot there. And you'll see that the menu at the top is for it's a resonate. So I felt, in answer to the question, yeah, I felt a lot going on and I did want to capture it. So I just kept plopping pages. And if you go to the alzheimersconversation.com, it's a long list. The top of it is a list of topics, like a table of contents of all the different topics. And then below that is media links. Who would have imagined there would be any media related to this? But these seem to be topics of interest, so I plopped them. There's a whole list of those, but any web designer would be ashamed at what I've done. But that's my journaling is exactly there, and you can get a sense. Yes, journaling is important to me, and I can tell because of how much journaling stuff there is there. Yes. Do other people journal in different ways? I wonder.
Yeah. And I even wonder if that is expanded to, like, how do you express yourself when you're feeling? Like, perhaps you draw, perhaps you collage, perhaps you, like, I think that you're capturing, like, how we harness our feelings into the creation of something. So maybe Hazel, you journal, I'm not sure. But I don't know, as Wally asked, if others, how others express themselves. Yeah. If you want to share, you're welcome to. And I will share another example with you of my epitaphing. Amy says writing and journaling. Does anyone else want to share? I think this also invites us to look around us more purposefully. Lorelei wrote, Lorelei wrote, Pachelbel's canon in D, point and counterpoint. Parts mesh together at the end. The ending is really loud. Point and counterpoint mesh. That is a duet.
So that's their way of expressing. And everybody has their own way of feeling. Here, Lorelei would feel something different than I would feel, and everybody here is the same way. And it's what you just said, Claire. What do we do with it? How much do we pay attention to these things? And then what do we do?
And then what do we do?
And how much do people in their grieving process or in their remembering us remember those things? That's what they really remember about us. Or what things about us do we express as being important for ourselves?
Em wrote, telling stories to my kids and future grandkids I will unlikely see. My son jokes, is this for the death pile? And Sheila wrote also about stories and memories. The death pile. I can picture the death pile. I've never heard of a death pile before, but I can picture it. Can you? Yeah. The telling of stories is really interesting to me. The epitaph that I will share with you in a minute or two is related to that. It's interesting to me partly because how we tell stories changes depending on who we're talking to, or where we are in our life. And I wonder, I don't have an answer because I just thought about that right now because we are just having a conversation. but I wonder what that means. Yeah. So, but Sheila and M, the telling of stories, the sort of passing on, the passing on to others is the way that they channel. Are you ready to hear my epitaphing? Okay. Talk and joke about life and death. Yeah, I think, that goes back, I think, to the beginning of Andy saying, here is Wally, this is where Wally is in his life, and this is how Wally is moving with it. Right? Talking and joking and being, and like, this is where we are. And Wally said, we know where we're going, like, we will die. That's what happens. And what are we doing right now? So I'm grateful that we can talk about it. And I will share with you, plural, you plural. Did anyone take Latin or like one of those languages? You plural. I took a bunch of Latin when I was in, as a kid. And thank you, M. Yes, okay. And conjugation in that way, like you plural, is something I think about every day when we're in conversation. So you plural. So I began thinking about, well, first of all, I didn't know what an epitaph was until a couple weeks ago when Andy graciously introduced me and my colleague Amy to Wally. But I began formally thinking about ritual as it relates to advanced care planning. Again, formally thinking probably about a year and change ago when I worked with the Shomer Collective. And some of you are familiar with their work. I know you've done some work together with Reimagine. But for most of my life, I think I've thought about rituals. They ground me. They provide space for me to honor people and places and things. I think about this a lot at DOROT because this is connected to what we do. And then Wally asked me to create an epitaph and to think with you about how to do epitaphing. So I chose to tell you about my grandma, whose name was Miriam Raymond Solomon. She died about 10 years ago. She was heavily memorialized. We had a service for her. You can read about her on the internet. She was really cool. And as a parent, I think about her almost all the time in ways that nobody talked about when she died. Partly because there is an apocryphal story, this relates to the telling of stories in my family, that my grandmother would patiently, except for it was really impatiently, speak with us when we were little kids on the phone. So she lived in the rural South. We lived in the Midwest suburbs. And when we were talking to her, we would like take a pause and she would say something like, okay, Claire, like, that's great. I have to run. Something's in the oven. I have to attend to something in the oven. Except she didn't have anything in the oven. She just like didn't want to talk anymore. And as we got older, she loved when we talked. She made a list of all these things she wanted to talk about when we saw her. She had very precise cursive handwriting. I anticipate you can picture in your mind people in your lives whose handwriting you remember. But now, as a parent, and I have 2 little talkative kids, I wonder, like, was it mean of her to hang up on us, if that really happened? I think it did. Was she just being honest? I don't know. Like, what did it say about her time and our time and the time we had together? So here's the epitaph I wrote a week or 2 ago to my grandmother. Her time was valuable. She was invested in my becoming. She cared deeply about who I was when I became a person. She loved with words. So Wally reminded me that I have to do something with my epitaph, to practice epitaphing. So for the last week or 2, thank you, hearts, claps, thank you. For the last week or 2, I asked my oldest child, whose name actually is Miriam. She's named after my grandma. We call her Miri. I asked her a question before dinner. and I tacked it onto what I typically ask her, which is like, tell me 3 things about your day. And she won't tell me more than 3, usually. If we get to 4, she's like, I already told you 3. Okay, I'm probably in trouble later in my life, but okay. So I say, Miri, your great-grandma, Miriam, remember you were named after her, was really careful about, and she loved words. So like every day, I'm going to ask you to tell me 1 word to describe yourself. So can you tell me 1 word to describe yourself today? And actually, she has. She said the following words. I've been writing them down every day. Happy, playing, fun, happy. Why? I think she was like, why are you asking me this again? Playing. Again, Andy likes this one. Tushy butt. That was her answer. Tushy butt. Like, that's what she said to me. Laughing. I think that those are and like, maybe I'll do something with all these words one day. Maybe I won't. And they remind me of my grandmother. And they remind me of impact and intention and this accessible process that we can all do, that's so deeply connected to the legacy work that we do at DOROT, which includes offering the opportunity to create legacy projects. We can talk about that, but also thinking all the time about what we leave behind. Words, stories, conversations, and how we want to be remembered. And it reminds me that it's not hard to remember as a verb, even when it's hard to remember as a verb. Both. And I'm so grateful that Wally introduced us to this concept. It's of such use to me. Yes,
Can you just say over what you just said about remembering?
Yeah, you know why I said it that way? What I wrote was, it's not hard to remember even if it's hard to remember. Because I'm mindful that literally it's hard to remember. That's why we're here. And I think the act of you're making me think about feelings and not about thinking. That's a gift you gave me. I'm making you emotional, Sheila? Okay. You're welcome, Sheila. So there's my epitaph, and there's my epitaphing. Tushy butt. Miri. She's upstairs. Hazel wrote, so thank you, period, pause. Hazel wrote, I'm one of 7 children, and when my mom died, I remember feeling the cream of her life rose to the top. That's not an epitaph, but it's a wonderful image, she wrote. We started thinking about songs because you made me think about songs with the duet. I wonder what images are you thinking about? Anyone is welcome to share. The cream of her life rose to the top. Yeah, Wally.
Marcia, are you?
Oh, Marcia, are you? I can't see you. Is your hand up? You want to share?
I wasn't, but I was planning to. So, well, but not a comment on this last
that's okay.
text. I was gonna.
If you are so moved right now, it can be your time.
Okay, thank you. So I had my grandmother Minnie, my Bubby Minnie, was so important in my life. She basically brought me up, and when she died, I felt it as a great loss. I talked to her all the time, and I am now dealing with, I'm at a stage in my life and dealing with, situations that would have been so unusual to her. I have no idea anymore what she would have answered. So my dialogue to her has changed, where she starts talking and she is seeing me. It's a little weird, maybe. She starts talking and
it's not weird.
She is seeing me and she says, why on earth are you why on earth did you have the conversation that way, or whatever it is? And I will answer back, I did it because if I said this instead of that, she would be angry and not able to listen. Maybe I made a mistake, but that's why I did it. And I find that just through having her observe and point out the things I'm a little stumbly on in my own life, or I hang up and I wonder if I should have done that. I think I made a mistake. This just deals with that. Another thing about my grandmother, Minnie, she led an amazing life, and I have sort of part by part in her life, every time I am with my grandson, from the time he was 6 and he's now 13, I tell him part of her story in chronological order, so that now when I visit my daughter and grandson, he says, and I want to hear the next episode about Grandma Minnie. But he also comes to me sometimes and says, I'm not sure I know how to deal with this situation at school. And I'll give him some thoughts, and I say to him, do you have any idea what Grandma Minnie might say to you? And he says, well, I don't know her well enough, but maybe she would say something like this. And I say, I think you're on to something. And we leave it at that. And I don't know where it goes with him, but the fact that he brings her up, it just makes me so happy. And I think it's going to be with him when I'm no longer there to, after I die. I think this will be part of his memories of her, although he never met her, and of me. So
I don't know if you saw Wally in my face. Wally, go.
I'm just curious, Marcia. I don't remember what you said. How did Minnie come up between you and your son? What was the first time that she appeared in your conversations?
I wanted him to know about his great-grandmother, and I just told him something about her early life when she came to America alone at the age of 13 and had her passport stolen. It's sort of a dramatic thing that happened, because I wanted him to know about her. And then I visit them regularly, and every time I would just tell him the next thing that happened in her life. And after a few times of that, actually, he wakes up very early. I wake up very early. My daughter sleeps very late. He would come in and crawl into my bed and say he wanted to hear the next episode of Grandma Minnie. So,
I mean, that's epitaphing.
Yeah.
Right, Wally?
That's amazing. And you put in the energy, and then once you put in the energy, it flowed. And that's always a great measure. You put out something, and gosh, look at where that's gone.
You don't know where it's going to go.
No, you don't have any idea.
Well, isn't that the story, right? Marcia, I love that you savor it.
I just think I love it so much.
That's something, I mean, we don't, especially I imagine your grandchild, we don't have the opportunity to do that as much now, given how information moves and how we have access to the world. And I think that is moving to me, that you're slowing it down. It invites you to listen in a different way and to feel in a different way. Whomever is on the phone, your hand is up, and I'm going to ask you to unmute. and I'd love for you to share your name.
Hi.
Barbara?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Barbara.
Yes, Barbara. Hi. Oh, Claire and Wally, I'm so moved and touched with tears and joy and I don't even know the words from both of you. I want to share something about my maternal grandmother. I had 4 great grandparents, the most wonderful ever, ever, ever. But for now, I'm going to share about my maternal grandmother. She was the 9th child born in Hungary to her mother, and her siblings were all older and married already when she was born. Her mother was quite old for those days, very old. And she came to this country and with her father, and always missed her mother, talked about her all the time, was in grief about her mother for a long time. And then I started sleeping over their house every weekend. And I would go in the bed with my grandmother, and she would tell me these parables, teaching stories from Europe. And one of them was amazing. It makes me think about that a lot right now. So bear with me. I'm very emotional. I'm going to try to just talk normal, okay? So she told me that there was a little girl in Europe who had sorrows and with depression and had nobody to talk to. So she went into the forest every day, to the deepest, darkest part of the forest where no one could see her. And she found a huge rock. My grandmother was very dramatic when she spoke. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and sparkled. And so you were captured by her when she would tell these stories. And I would say to her, well, how big was the rock? And she'd say it was as big as this whole building, which was huge to a little girl, and would be now to me at this age, huge building. And she said the girl would throw her entire body over the rock and cry and tell the rock her feelings. And then she'd go home. And I said, well, what happened then? She said, well, she'd be okay, but she'd have to go back the next day and do it again. And day after day, the little girl went back to the rock and told her pain, got her feelings out, and came home. And then my grandmother, I'm trying to make it simple now so other people can talk. I'm not going to take it out the way my grandmother did. But in the end, after the girl went to the rock every day and gave her broken heart to the rock, one day this giant rock, which my grandmother said was as big as a building, cracked right in the middle down. And the moral of the story was the rock cracked instead of the girl's heart cracking. And if the girl had not gone and talked and got her feelings out, she would have been broken and fractured. It was very powerful the way my grandmother would tell it. And even as a young child, I understood it, that how important it is to be able to express feelings. Nowadays we would journal and write it. In those days she went in the forest to a rock just to get it out of you so your organs don't express it for you. So I wanted to share that. And your stories were so touching, both of you, and beautiful, and I'm so grateful for what you wrote. So grateful. That's all I just want to say. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing us to the rock, Barbara. I'm thinking about the rock.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about the rock?
Yeah, I am, because as a little girl, I pictured the rock to be gigantic, like bigger than anything I could imagine, and how the rock, as strong and big as it was, could break from taking the pain in and save the girl's life. She knew what to do, this little girl. She knew what to do. She knew she had to get her pain out, and she knew she had to keep going back for as long as she did. Now, we were talking about grieving, how everybody grieves differently, and everybody's grief process should be honored in the way that person grieves. And that girl was grieving. And my grandmother, who grew up without a mother, was the best mother of 4 children, 4 daughters, one of them my mother, and the best grandmother in the whole wide world.
Well, thanks for sharing her with us.
Thank you.
I think another thing that's so moving about spaces like this is it invites us to share our grandmothers with each other.
Yes.
So now I know a little bit about your grandmother, and Marcia a
Yes.
little bit about yours too.
About your daughter,
Na-
who sounds so sweet, so bright.
Thank you. Natalie wrote that she thinks of wind phones. What, Natalie? What's a wind phone?
Hi, Wally. Wind phones are, I think they were created in Japan following the tsunamis that happened, that obviously devastated the communities and killed many people. And somebody set up a phone booth that people would go to and like call their loved ones that they lost and talk to them. And it became like a phenomenon, and I believe there's a documentary, and they now have popped up these phone booths all over the world. I think particularly after big natural disasters where there's so much chaos, panic, but also so much left unresolved, maybe is a word. So yeah, I'm thinking of wind phones as I'm hearing this.
Wind phones. Andy wrote, a Reimagine guest last night, Kelly Cervantes, describes grief as carrying a big rock in your pocket. It weighs you down. But over time, the rock transforms into smaller stones. Not as heavy, but you carry it with you. One time my mom wrote me a stock. I was having trouble writing a condolence note for someone I didn't really know. And I always asked my mom for help with words. And I was like, do you have any, can you help me? And she, in my mom's fashion, wrote me back this email with like a draft of how she frames a condolence note. And she said she hoped I never had to use it. But the first sentence is something like, grief, words can do little to assuage grief. And that weight is really hard to bear, right? Like, it's so heavy. And here we are. I didn't really do that sentence justice. But the point is, it feels so big. And then it breaks. And then perhaps over time it breaks down or looks different. Or you carry it differently.
Wow.
And words can be heavy too, right? As heavy as rocks. Who else is thinking of someone that they want to bring to us? I know we also wanted to, in our last few minutes, ask you about epitaphs that you already might be familiar with, or how your epitaphs could be put into action through epitaphing. Now it's the time for you. I mean, it always has been, I hope, but now it is too. Amy? Yeah. Oh, Amy and then Sheila.
Well, I don't think this will actually be my tombstone. I think this will be my living stone and my own epigram for myself that is sort of left to my children. But I thought of it while you were speaking, and mine is open to all people and experiences. That's what I want to pass down to my children, that they be open to it all, and that if there was an action they could do, it would be every day to kind of be open to something unexpected. And it could be a little something they see or smell or encounter. But that is sort of what I came up with after hearing you speak, Wally.
Thank you, Amy. And I see Wally saying thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that you are coming to them, and that they'll connect with you, and you've put that out there for them. for whatever they'll do with it. It's beautiful.
Sheila?
First of all, Claire, Wally, Amy, thank you so much. I signed up last minute. Thank you, Amy, for the reminder, and it's certainly been worthwhile. As far as you made me think about epitaphs, of course. A while back, I don't know if it was through DOROT, but there was a Zoom on cemeteries and tombstones, and there was one focus: recipes.
Yes, that was a DOROT program. Wally, do you know about this?
No,
it's
never
so
heard of it.
cool.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, you're
well,
on.
Sheila,
Claire.
why don't you talk about what was wonderful about it for you while I
Well, I thought what a wonderful way to remember someone, and what people. And first of all, I have to tell you that I'm a true tapophile. That's a person who loves cemeteries. So there's so much history there. And I feel very happy when I go to cemeteries because you're remembering the good things. So what people, I don't know how it started, but people decided, boy, we're going to miss grandma's cookie recipe, or I didn't write down mom's cake recipe for everybody. And oftentimes these were for occasions. These were very ritualistic. And so whoever came up with the idea, let's put it on her tombstone. So you go around to these different cemeteries and you actually see the recipe. And sometimes people would come by, maybe on the anniversary of the death, and leave a little plate of cookies.
Yeah, Sheila, thank you
wonderful?
so much for making this connection. So this is this woman named Rosie Grant,
Yes.
who has gone around the country preserving the recipes of that have been left, that are left on tombstones, and making the food. And she has created a cookbook. It was a great program. I'm sure she'd be happy to do another program. That is
yes.
such a good example of epitaphing and lifestones, right? Something is there, and then her name is Rosie Grant, and I put her website and her book, the link to her book, in the chat. She's just a regular person like you and me and Wally, and this is her work.
That's how people are. You know, how do you honor that person? Go home and bake the cookies that the recipe is on their tombstone, and that is keeping them alive.
And
in
even
the
more,
most
she doesn't
real way possible.
She doesn't know them, right? Like, so
Right.
talk about the artist bricklayer. She's giving. It's a different kind of gift. Yeah, thank you, Sheila. Yeah. How interesting. Who else we have a minute or so left together. Who has something they'd like to say? Or a way that they're feeling that they'd like to share?
I would like to say something. I mentioned this program Sheila was referencing in an earlier DOROT program. This is Amy from On-Site and Special Programs. And Wally, I feel very gifted to have met you at this point in your life. And I feel that the way that you are feeling and encountering life at this phase is very powerful. I think it's somewhat unique, and I think it is a model for me and for, I think and believe, others. So I just wanted to say that and thank you.
If you don't mind, I appreciate your saying that. Let me just fill in another piece of that. The people here are keeping me alive. That's the way it is at this stage of life. Some feeling that of mission, of purpose, of bringing something into the world against this blackness it's right here. It's right in front of my face. And so I appreciate your saying that you appreciate me, and I think it's really appropriate to say I appreciate everybody here. It makes a big difference in my life. Thank you so much.
It's a circle. Thank you, Wally.
And I just finally want to say to you, Claire, and to you, Wally, thank you for this beautiful duet. There was a lot of music in this space. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and your questions. I hope we can do something like this again in the future together. Thank you, DOROT.
Thank you, Auntie.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
See you later. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.